Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us on this Industry Insight session sponsored by Geneva Business School. It's a great pleasure to have here today our next speaker, Mr. Zoltán Buzády. He's going to talk about the topic, it's flow, leadership development, and serious games. Okay, so a little bit about our speaker. So guided by the motto, learning, leading, leapfrogging, Zoltán Buzády has a quarter century of experimentation and innovation at the interface of leadership, psychology, and gamification. He has authored several global award-winning teaching case studies, won international pedagogical innovation awards, and has extensive practical experience. His current research focuses on leadership and flow theory, combining it with self-development, aiming to further leadership development that is applicable in different cultural and situational contexts. These new insights can be ideally used for future-proof talent management and modern leadership strategies based on the modern big data and predictive HR analysis of the global award-winning Fligby serious game.
Wow.
So, without any further ado, it is an honor for us and a privilege to have Mr. Zoltán Buzády this afternoon. So thank you again, Zoltán, for being here with us today. And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eduardo, Paloma, dear team at Geneva Business School and colleagues. Welcome, dear viewers, dear students. This introduction is true, but it sounds a little bit too much actually now that I'm re-listening it, although I had prepared it. The essence of this show is going to be that you have some more knowledge so that you become a better, more successful leader in the business world, so that working with people together with them, your team, your own environment in which you will have to have an impact becomes more competitive. So what I'm going to share with you is the essence of all the 20-25 years of teaching around the subject of business. But I have been only successful because it had to be relevant to the business community where I was teaching. So I have found interesting thoughts, but more importantly, interesting questions for you to prepare yourself to become more efficient and more balanced in your future tasks, to lead people, to make a difference in the business world or in organizations. And I'm also going to speak to you about the tool. I'm going to demonstrate that tool, which we use for teaching that. I use this tool at my home university, but also where I'm invited to share this knowledge. For example, I'm using this already at Geneva Business School and certain campuses. So I have shared with you in the chat, but you can see it also here on the link, a short link, all the slides which I think are going to be relevant. I asked you to follow those slides later on, but rather stay here on screen because I'm going to use more slides and I'm going to animate them and involve you. But everything I have in terms of core knowledge will be available for you through this link later on. On this beautiful bridge, with some of you, as you told me before we began, you've been here. You can see Budapest Bridge, my home university. It's called Corvinus University of Budapest. It's the great state economics university and management science. It's soon triple accredited, and it seems to be on paper also approved that it is the best in the Central European region now. So I welcome you not only to this show, but I would like to open your outreach technically and spiritually towards a region within Europe, which is Central Europe, which has great innovations. One of the innovations, which most people have seen somewhere, but they do not know it's a great Hungarian innovation, is the Rubik Cube. Mr. Rubik is an engineer of background, and he designed a toy which he did not intend to be a toy in the first place, but it's actually a teaching tool. It is a tool to demonstrate three-dimensional algorithms and mathematics. So this toy, which people are playing with, it has become popular because it's pretty complex and at the same time it's pretty simple. It has 3 dimensions, and you move them around, and your task is to actually arrange the colors. You will see during my presentation that this game is typical for what we are doing in adult education, in management education, because we want to use toys, tools to teach them to develop their skills rather than giving a lecture. So many years, throughout the years, I have been researching leadership. What makes a good leader a leader? Is it the value system, something around his innovation, judgment? I'm going to present to you the essence of my research work in the hope that you can take this on board and build your own future success on my past work on exploring this. Games will become important, but first I have to outline the theory. At certain points during the presentation, I'm planning for yet another half an hour. I will interrupt, maybe I will ask some of you for some comments, feedback, and I ask you to prepare some of the questions you might have during the presentation to be asked at the end. Now, when I start my interactions with my MBA students and managers, I ask them to look at these icons and choose the one which they think is the closest to them, how they see themselves as leaders. Some of them say, I'm like a conductor. I have to orchestrate my team. Some of them say, I'm like a strategic visionary. I have to take the helicopter view. Some of them say, I am like a gardener and I have to water the new innovations and team members. Some of them say, I'm a big entrepreneur. I have to take my team to the peaks, to the achievements. Some of them say, I'm giving orientation in which direction to go. Again, others are focusing on building an energizer or asking questions or drawing a vision. But all of these impressions are useful, but all of these impressions are not enough either. So first takeaway for you to develop your own leadership is which is the one you would sympathize with. Discuss it with a friend, with a colleague, why they have chosen it, why you have chosen it, what are the pros and cons. These are metaphors, but what emerges from all of these is ultimately the role of a leader is not to develop only himself or herself, but it's actually to focus on the team members. Now, the next activity would be, or is, if you have a set of people whom you have to choose as a leader onto your team, which are the criteria which is important to you to choose any of these candidates? These candidates could be you, by the way, after graduation, and they have all different stories, what they're particularly good in. And you have your own sets of expectations. Now, maybe you have learned in organizational behavior or leadership a theory by a person called Belbin, who explains that in a questionnaire, you can find out about what these members have as personality and skills. And when you join them into your team, make this questionnaire, and then they will fit very nicely into the puzzle, into the big picture. Well, unfortunately, too many companies, training companies, are selling you this cheap, easy-going idea. They disappear after the recruitment, and you're left alone with the real fact that after a while, teams and organizations disintegrate. There is argument coming about, stress, and the team is falling apart, although you have made your best to select the best ingredients, the best people. And at this point, my thinking continued and asked, why is it that teams, after a while, start to disintegrate? Why is it that managers need to intervene and manage the team dynamics? And one of the answers which I came up with is that people have all their own preferences and sources, what really they want to achieve. This is just symbolic to show that, things are on our mind and in everyday life, in hobbies, outside of work, but also within the work, people have different drivers on what motivates them from the inside, not from the outside, what the company is expecting, but really what makes them feel energized. And at this point, I became interested in the research of what actually makes people happy. Most people, when you ask them what they want to achieve, after the first few sentences of how much they want to earn, they end up with a bland statement saying, I would like just to be happy. And in happiness, there are philosophically two types of approaches. Most people would say this is not happiness. Look at this guy, he's working in this warm summer dust. The horse is working and pulling so strongly this plow, and this other person here, maybe the family member, he is happy to be a little bit in the shadow, but this man, surely that's not happiness. Most people would first think that this is happiness, to sit on a beach, a nice breeze, maybe you drink some of this blue curacao and have your ice cream with it. Yes, this is happiness. But if you're really honest to yourself, how long would you be able to sit on this beach? Maybe an hour? Frankly speaking, to you, after 2 hours, I would feel extremely bored. Something needs to happen. I need to do something. And most people really would admit that this is happening to them also after a day or 2 days, that doing nothing actually is not a source of lasting happiness. It's just a source of what is psychologically and philosophically called pleasure. But this man, in contrast, if you would stop him now and would ask him, how do you feel? He'd say, yeah, I'm sweating, it's difficult, give me some water. But actually, I was doing something which was great. I was using the skills I have learned over the years. I'm getting better and better. And look how deep I was managing to put the plow into the earth. And this will bring, I'm pretty sure, a much better harvest this year than I managed last year. And I'm coordinating this complex system of horse and body and team members. So this is another source of happiness, another type, which is closer to using your skills you have, and we call that enjoyment. So in enjoyment, you are active and you get better at the activity because you enhance your skills. So we have arrived at a fundamental next level of question: what makes people not just happy, but what is actually a meaningful life? A meaningful life is something which is full of activities where you say that this work was meaningful. So as more often you have meaningful activities or work, you will be able to say, my life all in all was by and large meaningful, and therefore I felt happy. Because if you just look for the money or for how much you want to spend, how much to eat, after a while you will not find it very engaging and interesting, because it's not going to be a lasting source of happiness. It has a plateau. So you can't eat more or can't sleep longer after a while, but with work and interesting activities, you can actually do that. So what are meaningful activities which students have normally described, the managers? They can be like doing sports, playing in a football team, doing handwork, like repairing something, bicycle repair. I like to do that. Some people like to cook. Again, others like to do readings. Again, others like to prepare presentation slides, organize meetings. And increasingly, you will discover courses, subjects you like to spend time with, to discover what it is all about. And this is actually called a meaningful life, meaningful activities. Now, what sounds very interesting and general is not that interesting and general if you look at the documentation about happiness before this person came about. This person is the first one who, with scientific tools, has described and measured and made the research of happiness studies a science. Before that, everybody thought, it's something which might happen to lucky ones, or there is no secret how to find happiness, but there is actually a science which is the truth, the possibility to discover happiness in your work and in your life. And this person is called Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. It's a Hungarian name. Very often it's thought that it's a Georgian name. No, it's Hungarian. It comes from the English, not from the Hungarian, But for the English, to understand it better, it is this part of the face is called the cheek. When you type an email and it's finished, then it's sent, and then it's me, like I, me, and then hi, like upward. So it's pretty easy to pronounce once you've heard this little trick. And he's being treated like a global guru, a bestseller, because of his work to have discovered what makes people energized and feel positive. And why this seminar, I hope, is interesting for you, is that through me, you can connect to this energy, this wisdom, and the tool, which I'm going to show you a little bit, of this Professor Csikszentmihalyi. So he's my colleague, and through his network, his company, I am sharing how his research can be used as a management principle to make teams more effective, how to make your life more effective. But first, I need to tell you a little bit about the background, how he came about to search for happiness. And it happens that when he had to leave with his diplomatic parents, sort of intellectual parents and well-off parents after the Second World War from Budapest, and there were refugees in Rome without anything, most of the people around him were in this black zone. They were grieving and being angry at themselves why they had lost the war, when they can get back to Budapest, the opera, the nice houses, the flats, the servants, and so on. And this didn't come about. It became clear that the Hungarian state has lost the war, it collapsed. And his family members, after a while, a few weeks later on, started a little restaurant in Italy, in Rome. It's called the Piccolo Budapest, the small Budapest. And this young guy observed that his people, his family members, somehow in the evening, they felt that they had a meaningful day. They were getting up the next day with energy to overcome challenges, to put together the menu, to clean afterwards. In the evening, they were listening to some gypsy music who was playing there, and they felt happy, in contrast to many others around him who felt really depressed. And before him, depression, aggression was the realm of psychology. And Csikszentmihalyi started to ask positive questions. What makes people stand up, overcome burdens, enjoying the work? So his fundamental question formed a new science, a new dimension. It's called positive psychology. And in contrast to the classical psychological approaches, which were not helpful for healthy people like you and me, and how I would like you to become more successful. So Csikszentmihalyi started doing his research, and he discovered that certain people at random times during the day were reporting to him in a survey, random survey during the day, that yes, today, right now, there was a moment when I did something which I actually enjoyed. And not always. Sometimes they were saying other feelings, that today I felt bored, there was nothing to do, today I was afraid. So mental states, experiences which were not optimal. But optimal experience, people typically reported like this guy when they were doing something, an activity. If you would stop him and ask, is your work sensible? And he would say, yes, I'm providing food for myself, my family, I'm following the traditions, the techniques, and I'm improving on it. So this is called optimal experience in science. But now people have given it a different name, and it is called the flow. First, a few words. The flow is a slang word which people have given to this optimal experience, speaking to Csikszentmihalyi, saying that when they did this activity, they felt that it was straightforward what to do. They felt like being in a big river, energized from the outside and going forward. They felt that this energy was also inside them. It was clear in which direction they have to proceed and go forward. And also when you're in a big river and swimming with the current, you swim actually faster than you would normally think that you can swim, because it advances you. So the flow is something you probably have seen in your own life experiences when time is running very fast, and this activity you felt was really great and engaging. Csikszentmihalyi, he is here on the left side with one of his relatives, is visiting Budapest rather frequently with his family also. And there is a restaurant and a cafe in the center of Budapest, which is called the Flow Cafe. And they have made his statements being displayed on the walls. And here you can see him standing in front of his own definition, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, about what the flow is. And the flow is something which you can observe, asking yourself, how do I feel now? What is my mental state? And the definition is around activity. It is always occurring when you do something. It can be mental activity like meditation, thinking about something, making a plan, but it's not passivity in contrast to that. And during this flow, fortunately, your ego falls away. You don't really care what others are thinking. You just want to succeed and do the best you can. During this flow state, time is contracted. It goes very fast, or you're super alert and very much focused on activities. Actions matter. You feel in control. And it's like a musician when they play jazz music. There is no score. They are actually creating the music by playing with each other. And they do it with full energy, and they say, oof, I've been playing this piece now for half an hour. Let me just have a quick break, but I would like to get back into this zone, into the flow. So another word for flow and optimal experience is to say that you are in the zone. Why? Because Csikszentmihalyi, as a scientist, has found correlation, asking thousands of participants during the day how they feel. And sometimes they said, I feel anxiety, as I told you. Sometimes they felt bored. Sometimes they described this mental state like being in the flow. And sometimes they also said, I feel totally in apathy. And the relationship he discovered is that these green, blue, white, and black zones strongly depend on the balance between your skills, and the other dimension is the challenge you have to overcome. So somebody who has high level of skills and nothing to do down here would say, I'm ready to start the work, but there's nothing I can do about it. I would just have to wait, or meeting is boring. Let's discuss really interesting topics which are challenging to me. And once you are beyond the level of boredom, you start to enter this, what he first called the zone, the flow zone. The other extreme could be if you have to do a task, a very difficult task, and you don't think you have the skills, and then you would feel an anxiety. You're overstressed, you can't resolve it, and you can't feel happy because of this high level of challenge compared to your skills. And in the black zone, there's apathy. Apathy is a mental state when you have internally resigned already. You don't find a way out of your work. You don't think that you can do any change, and there's no point in change because there is no challenge. That doesn't make sense. So optimal experience, being in the zone, or flow are synonyms, and they are actually mental states in which you are applying your skills at a high level, and you slightly develop them and get better. And it's very positive because you have lots of good advantages from being in the zone. He discovered that people who are, for example, medical profession, when they do the operations, they are almost often always in flow. But cutting grass with a lawnmower could also be a good source of flow. It's super difficult to find the optimal track, how to move the lawnmower up or down, left and right. And when you're doing something in flow, you notice that your concentration gets deeper and deeper. Wow, great. We would always want to concentrate on the things we have to do. Psychologists and people say you should focus on the present, not about the worries on what will happen later on or the past, which you can't change. Enjoying life in the present. You feel that you're in control. It's your action which changes the course, the track of the lawnmower or of the operation. I mentioned about time. You will notice that it runs too fast or extremely slowly, and you focus on every little microsecond. And also, you become yourself, a different self. You don't care about what other people are thinking about you. You do your best. So these are the benefits of being in flow. I will now make the life a little bit more realistic, because Csikszentmihalyi has not only 4, but in fact 8 major mental states. He introduced a few. For example, the pink one here, the worry, is a lower level of anxiety. It's when you are not sure about your problems, because in anxiety you're sure that this is a big problem. So worry is between anxiety. Also, after boredom, he discovered and he documented there is a mental state called relaxation. You're actually ready with energy to start the work. You are doing your activity maybe already at low pace. Easy piece of cake, but you're doing something. And then when you use most of your energy and your brain power, you feel in control. And then you can enter the flow if you are really pushing the challenge level beyond the control. But if you over push it and you try to do too many things, then you lose your focus and your concentration, and then arousal comes about. It is when you do too many activities at the same time. So one of the quizzes which I have prepared slightly for you is to ask the question, how do you detect if you yourself are in either of these phases? Because if you know where you are, then you could actually adjust either the challenge level by renegotiating with yourself or with your boss how much you have to do and what you have to do, or consider which skills you have at hand. So, Eduardo, I wonder if you're here. Can I ask?
I'm here.
Can you give us an example where you have discovered yourself in any of these mental states, and how you discover which words you use or your body language? For example, when you're in anxiety, really anxiety, how would you react?
Yeah, well, personally, I detect when I'm anxious because of mainly it starts with physiological reactions. You notice, and I think this is why it's very important to learn how to listen to our body. To identify how are we feeling. So in an anxiety situation, I feel first your heart starts racing. There's a little sweat in the palms of your hand. I realized that I stopped thinking clearly like I normally do, and I start detecting certain passionate introspective reactions. I personally don't react. I don't externalize the anxiety, but I detect it because I notice that my mind starts making some assumptions, not fact-based, but only based on emotions.
Thank you, Eduardo. This is the perfect description of being in anxiety, and it's very good that you have so much self-discovery and self-awareness already. So when you have this feeling, you might think, oh my God, but what causes this? Is it a lack of skill for this particular situation? Or if you would be able to exercise this after a while, you would say to yourself, let's go slowly with the challenge. Let's check more the facts about whether the challenge is really so high. And immediately you would calm down, and that's called worry. So you react in this way, but some other people react very differently and when they're really anxious. Anybody from the audience wants to come in and share with us what is the other very common alternative to react to Eduardo? He said he would rather retrieve, he would a little bit block, but some other people react very different when they're anxious.
Duigu, I see that you made a comment. Please feel free to open your mic and share.
Yes.
Duigu, Gildis, can you open your mic and share your thoughts, please?
Yes, I am here. Thank you. Yes,
Tell us, when you observe somebody or yourself under, for example, anxiety, how do you recognize this?
As Eduardo explained, I also sweat. I have hot and cold sweats. My voice changes. The way I speak also, and I make a lot of gestures.
Yes.
Your hand. I use hand and face. A lot of arm movements and hands.
Yes. Very good. So just this is a very thin exercise now, but just to see that you need to develop all of you, your eyes and your understanding of how people are in different emotions. And her way is more the aggressive part. Some people do freeze. I think, Eduardo, you would be more this category. And again, others over-agitate. They move around, the body is there, and they shout, and they look very self-assured, but actually it's a way of reacting to the mental state of being in anxiety. So don't be fooled by these. You need to understand this, to feel this, and as a good leader of yourself, but of others in particular, you would actually need to calm down this person, because they look very confident, highly energized, but it's a wrong type of and a different type of energy than somebody's in flow. Because when they're in flow, they're highly energized, but on the activity and not against others. So your hand movements, thank you very much for the example, are a good example of detecting that you're not focusing on the activity, on the process, but actually against each other, and it comes from a mental state anxiety. How would you discover somebody who's in control? Alina, can I ask you, what is it for you when you feel safe that a teacher is teaching well on your programs, and you see that a teacher is in control? What is the body language, the words they use?
You can see that they use the open gestures, that they're in contact with the audience. Their voice is more confident. They know what they're talking about. They might be smiling. Yes. What kind of words? Well, I think this is dependent on the topic of what the professor is talking about. But I think their body language can tell a lot about how confident they feel.
Yes. All of these emotions have some body language. For example, somebody in apathy is just, sitting there. He's not in the room at all. Somebody in boredom is, there, but when is the next coffee break? And somebody in control, as you say, is open for interaction, ready to start. It's more than relaxed, just sitting there in the front of the teaching room, but walking around, ready for anything which comes given as a ball. And you mentioned also the voices that they speak with others. Somebody in flow, after a while, just focuses on the discussion about the topic, like I do very often, or with the group, what's going on, but they're not having, small talk and routine talks, because the ego goes away. You don't want to impress others. You just are focused on the work. So brilliant. Thank you very much for this. This was the first part. I will speed up a bit, but this was the basics of flow. So for all of you, I think that in order to understand what flow is, the essence is that it's a mental state which is great and beneficial, because it brings up lots of energy and makes life meaningful, but it doesn't come about by itself. It is depending on a balance between skills and challenges, and you have to detect all the others. So this can be trained with games, as I'm coming to, but you can already observe yourself. Now, the next big chapter is how this is relevant for business. Well, look at my dogs here, black and white. They go home from work, and I like this so much, because it depicts pretty well the essence of what is flow at work if it doesn't work. Well, they go home, and they're speaking with each other. How was your work day? And they say, today was bad. We always had to be quiet, sit, stay, heal. And these dogs, they wish they would be discovered that they can think, they can jump around, they can innovate. They are very playful dogs. And all sorts of dogs have different genetics. So it's not in their genes to say that they are depressive. They are healthy dogs. It is just the owner which doesn't realize that he or she doesn't bring out the best of their dogs. So the parallel which I'm talking to you with dogs is actually also from Csikszentmihalyi. He himself observed his hunting dog, and he said when the dog felt that they went out into the countryside out of California, into the Rocky Mountains, the dog sort of transformed itself, got certainly energized, the genes and the interests were coming up and energizing. And this is the point. You remember I told you about the team. I told you you have to discover who's good at what in order to make them energized so that the team is not falling apart in different directions. But a good team leader would discover who's good at what and put the team together based on the internal motivations. Amongst the slides which I'm sharing with you, there are some which have hyperlinks, and you can discover, Chiksen, we're giving examples that this flow I'm talking about to you is not just a blah blah or something which happens in private life or outside of work. It's actually a workplace reality. And for us as leaders or future leaders, and where you are employed in the future, you should ask for what flow potential there is for you, because the advantages you can bring out at a workplace if you apply flow are great. The performance is increasing because you focus on the results. You're engaged. You keep the employees longer. You develop your skills. You do get better at it. Learning and development goes naturally if you have a challenge and you want to overcome it by yourself. And so often people are looking for creativity tools and they say, here, you should do this, you should do that, we give you money. But actually creativity comes from mastery. So these are very often elements which as a leader you would want to achieve with money, but it doesn't work. But they work when you are in a flow state. Good. So this was just in a nutshell to prove or to deduct that this is all relevant not only for sports achievements, musical achievements, learning, but also at the workplace. So then the next question comes is, how do you achieve other people's flow at the work? Alina, can I ask you again, for example, in Central Asia, what are the tools many of the companies which produce great GDP, for example, oil and gas companies, or which tools do HR people use often to make people happy at work in hope that they will become creative?
I think they mainly use the monetary compensation. They mainly focus on this. Then they can organize some team building and networking activities. Then they also have a human development plan, like a career development plan that you can discuss with your mentor, because many companies now organize a mentorship program for their employees. So I think mainly they focus on this, and then many companies, they have certain zones that are like co-working, they have sport facilities, they have this kind of things to improve, let's say, the internal climate of the company.
Yes, thank you. I'm very happy if you send chat messages. I just saw, for example, they want to create your creativity by promoting you. We'll speak about this also. And Alina also mentioned it, to have career progress. What other tools do you want to see in a company when you're applying? Or what do they offer to you when you start working? What other features?
I think after quarantine, they might offer you some flexibility that you can work from any place and you don't need to be in the office physically.
Yes, thank you. Networking tools, networking events, Alina also mentioned. Thank you. You see, these elements you mentioned belong in actually two categories. Some of them I have to refuse based on our experience and the research, what makes people creative. And some of them are opportunities, but you cannot use them immediately to all of them. You have to custom make them. And I was going to tell you this. I have seen far too often companies which have so-called happiness managers. They're not Asian ladies necessarily. There are people who have a budget and they organize parties. They organize colorful office furniture. They organize food, and then they have a gym. And they think, we give everything. And similar to money, this actually is not the way we think it is a lasting source of motivation, of flow. It's a waste of money. It's a waste of money because it brings to a plateau, and when the fruits are for free, they want to have the coffee for free, and when the coffee is for free, the telephone, and so on and so on. Instead of this, I propose to think along the ideas of positive psychology. So positive thinking is like happiness calendars, nice statements, but they're not very scientific in the sense that either they work or they don't work. But positive psychology of flow is based on science, and it actually is a theory, a good theory, which helps people to move into flow and into creativity. And this is not just a privilege exclusive to rich ones or rich companies. Csikszentmihalyi also says that anybody can get into flow, even if you have a very simple activity. When you drive, I don't drive a bus, but I drive a scooter. And even driving a scooter can be actually a great source of fun and flow. Sometimes I'm thinking I should become a bicycle delivery guy and find the best routes of Budapest going around with a bicycle. That would be a source of flow. And I can achieve it even without being very privileged in the classic sense. But there are scientific basis. This is the theory which I'm going to explain to you, how to move people into the flow at work. The first one, which you need always to get into the flow state, to become creative, to master your skills, is to have an overall goal which you want to achieve. So this guy is sitting here watching into the air, and if there is nothing to do, he's not being told what the goals are, what are the clear goals he should achieve or you want to achieve for yourself, no flow can come about. The second thing which Csikszentmihalyi had discovered is that you need a source of immediate feedback. So artists find it easy to see their art, the music, the painting, the sports people, they see the running. When you're with friends, the talk, the food when you prepare it. But you need to create a source for yourself of immediate feedback, or give as a leader immediate feedback. It should be constructive, actionable, and not in the future, not a quarterly review or a bonus. So money coming paid later on is not good. Promotion is also not a feedback of your abilities. It should not be said that, once you have achieved this and this in a number of years, you will be promoted. This is not making people creative. The third element, which is super difficult and important, we spoke a lot about, is finding this balance between your skills and the challenges, which I just spoke about. And here is where promotion comes in. So if you have a guy who is certainly very skilled at a certain activity and has this great challenge of work, then this guy should be promoted to become more acrobatic and move into the next level because he has mastered this. After a while, his skills become so good that he finds this boring and he needs a higher level of challenge. So promotion, which was given in the chat, and Alina also mentioned career plans, per se are not sources of creativity or happiness. It is actually the challenge, which is a danger. You might overshoot. You might promote somebody high in the challenge, and the person then is in anxiety. The good way of promoting somebody is if somebody is in the flow channel, and after a while they get a little bit bored already because they've been doing something for a long period, and then you give them, or they look for themselves, a higher level of challenge. So this is shown on this graph. It is shared with you too, that you can see that this flow zone after a while naturally becomes boring, and young people very often, they want to get fast promotion because they are in boredom. They are bored. So this graph will help you to explain your employer why you want to stay with the company, but you need a higher level of challenge. But of course, you need to be able to deliver that. And if you are a little bit over-challenged, then you might find it too difficult. You develop your skills, and after a few months, weeks, or years, you can then do it very well. The fourth element, which we know from science, to get into flow is to concentrate on your work. So no distractions, no multitasking. So I have now told you the principles of moving people into flow, who are your team members. For improving your own flow at work, as a future leader, you have to think about these characters. They all have their own sources of flow, which is related to the skills they have. They have power, they have agility, they have brains, they have perfect size, large size, small size, whatever. But all of these action heroes really are applying the flow theory because they know what skills they have. Now it becomes a little bit interesting because Csikszentmihalyi has identified 29 leadership and management skills in a book which I strongly recommend for anybody reading OB, people management, strategy. It's called Good Business. And in this, he described the success recipe of big American companies. And those leaders had 29 different skills which they were using in different combinations. And students like you or MBAs, very often they tell me the same things. They say, I'm good in team management, team player. I'm good in strategic thinking, and I'm good in time management. That's it. They have 3 skills. That's all. And they say, well, maybe I'm good in organizing. That's all. You only have 4 skills. I mean, what about the others? And in our training, which we do with Fligby, we go deeper and we discuss all these 29 skills which you have and you could have. And even worse, most people don't know their score. They say, you know, I'm good in teamwork, but they can't say how much percent. They have never measured their skills. They report something they want to have, or people think they should have, or they were told that they have, but they don't have a measurement of it. But in fact, it is possible to measure these 29 leadership skills in the system which Csikszentmihalyi has discovered and defined, which I'm going to show you next, the games. But before that, just a summary. So now you know that there are principles of moving people into creativity, into flow, and you can apply them for yourself, for your work team, or for you yourself as a leader. Now, the last segment I want to share with you is called Serious Games. Csikszentmihalyi has been approached by developers, colleagues of mine, and we told him, Mihai, people don't read the great books nowadays, Flow or Good Business, so much. They're in the bookshelves, in the shops, but people want to achieve it with modern tools. And we have created something which is called a serious game. So it is like the Rubik Cube, a toy, a tool to train you something. And in this story, which we are playing over several hours, you become the general manager of a fantasy company. It's almost like real. It's invented. It is a case study, and it is called Two Rule Winery in California. And in this wine company, you are then the general manager. But you're going to learn how to apply what I told you, the flow theory, to a real simulated business situation. There are real characters in the game. They appear on the screen like in an interactive movie, like a Netflix movie, in many, many episodes. And then they ask you questions, there are dilemmas, and they have fears, and they're not so happy with each other. And the other good thing about this, what we offer, is that it's a simulation game, so it's safe. You can make mistakes, but more importantly, you can replay and should replay to improve your simulation. And during the simulation game, you take decisions, and the system is measuring your decisions, and it interprets your scores. So, for example, here's one of my MBA students, Helen. She played very well the game. She got lots of profit. Everybody was in flow. She got lots of flow trophies. She played 10 hours of the game, and she read most. But this part of the screen shows what she's good at and her strengths and what her abilities are. This, for example, would show me that this person has high communication skills, 92% compared to 64%, which is the global average. I think this person should go for an activity in coaching or HR because she can speak well. She has lots of emotional intelligence, is very good in active listening, understanding what the other person wants, understands the social circumstances, gives very good feedback, is very well involved. So you need to discover your own skills, your own basis for being in flow. So to come a little bit speed up and coming more towards question and answers, I have shown you that there is a tool called Fligby. which is based on the principles of flow, and it is applying in a business simulation, a company situation, in a gamified environment, what I have been talking to you. I would like to invite you to click on this linked page later on to either follow different sources of knowledge. They can be through me or the company or Csikszentmihalyi, on Facebook, on YouTube, our blog page. Because as I promised to you, I'm here first of all to share with you the essence of the knowledge of what is the modern tool of becoming a better leader. It is by understanding the flow theory, you do that now, but also by following and expanding in it. The essence of my work is this guy with this interesting Hungarian name, this clever professor, Mihály Csikszentmihalyi. I am around his circle. We bring this knowledge to different business schools. In Geneva Business School, I would like to expand also in future if you're interested. And I hope that this discussion was moving around a little bit your Rubik Cube to come closer to the big question, what makes life meaningful? What is a meaningful work? How can I find my flow there? I'm not saying fully goodbye, but I wish with you, may the flow be with you. From my beautiful Budapest, from my city, I wish you, may the flow be with you. And there are some more slides attached for you if you would like to ask me questions. Eduardo, thank you very much for this formal part, and maybe we have some more time on asking questions.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to be available. And I hope this was very intense, because otherwise the life and time is wasted. And the question might arise, are you ready for flow? Because flow is ready for you. So this leadership theory exists. Is the question as, are you engaging in this? Are you going to use this new approach to make life and your work more interesting? So please, questions or comments by anybody.
Yeah, before we move to the Q&A session, our colleague Paloma Simon Piedri will put on the chat box Google form for the attendance and feedback. So even though you're not a student, I would kindly ask you to please fill out the form. This will help us to understand your level of satisfaction, and also would help us to keep you informed for future events and virtual conferences like this one. And it has another question related to Fligby. So please take just 3 minutes and fill out the form. And now we can start with the Q&A. Come on, don't be shy. Any questions so far?
Well, I could have a question, if that's okay.
Of course, Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, so how did you come about, like how many years ago did you meet this friend of yours who you now recommend so much, and you
Okay, so this professor again, his name is Csikszentmihalyi. He wrote his books, global bestsellers, about 30 years ago by now. And you can go into any language in the world and you will see several books by him translated in any of the bookshops which are sizable enough. So what I'm speaking about, this happiness studies, creativity studies, positive psychology are, foundation which is so close to the business world now, because it helps people become better leaders, present more. And how it came about is that he is being Hungarian, so he's often here in Hungary, and a company, as I mentioned to you, invited him to develop this Fligby leadership simulation game as a learning tool. I was writing case studies before that. I run classical Harvard-style case studies, but then I realized with the movie, wow, this is going to be great. And I discovered that it also measures your skills, and people want to develop the skills before they start to use them. So in the virtual story, you replay and you get a more sensitivity. So then I asked them to get more and more involved in my life, and I was working with them. And since then, I feel an ambassador of this. I'm working with this Fligby tool everywhere I'm invited as a trainer developer. But particularly, I want to bring this to Central Asia because I think there the mentality of people benefits even more of this more modern, humanistic approach of what makes people happy rather than just money. So how I got to know him is accident, but not accident because he's here in Hungary, and is not accident because I knew about his works generally, because it's widely known.
Okay.
Thank you for the very useful question.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Eduardo, maybe a last comment from you. We spoke about flow, and you had a little bit more time to take it on board. Maybe you can say an example where this thought, the balance of skills and challenges during the last 3-4 weeks that we've been together, have already impacted the way you use your own energy, your own success, you leading yourself or maybe others. Have you applied the flow aspects in some elements of life already?
Yeah, well, but first of all, I would like to say that I tested a little bit the platform, and I must say that it's incredibly fantastic. I mean, it presents a different way of learning within a virtual environment, in which through an avatar, you learn within a gamified environment the different aspects of leadership and different aspects related, some of them, to soft skills also. So it's amazing because it's completely a different format that, of course, we don't experience this type of tools on campus, and in the online experience, it's still not common to see this type of tools, and which I think are incredibly useful, fun, and insightful at the same time, you know, because it really helps to engage into the subject and to see which are the skills that I am good at, to identify which other competencies I would maybe need to work a little bit more. So definitely it's more fun and insightful than a regular test that you could take, because you actually experience this in this virtual winery company, different scenarios which are real at the end, and having the opportunity to test this, to learn from it, I think it's a wonderful opportunity. So, having said that,
I wrote a comment that people can actually check out this, you know, on the webpage as well, what you mentioned a little bit, and they can come back. Thank you for the recommending words. But is flow also something which is of value to you in your own life since we spoke the last few weeks? Did you discover more different types of activities which were more fun and less fun?
Well, actually, I was thinking about it the other day, and I found that especially during this particular times, this very uncertain and confusing times of crisis, of global crisis, I found myself within the necessity to do certain activities to reduce the level of anxiety and worriness. So what I spotted out here that is paying attention to the small things, taking into consideration the present, to enjoy the present, the right now, and trying. I know that it's easy to say and hard to do, but try not to focus too much in the uncertainties of the future, but of what you can do right now. So mindfulness classes,
yes,
yoga, exercise, reading. These are just a few. Cooking lessons, which we are also doing virtually. These activities that are strongly recommended, especially and in every situation, but especially in this time, because it actually helps you to reduce those levels of anxiety and actually find your path into the flow.
Yes,
Because
yes, thank you for saying this. The way you spoke is exactly or almost the same like people who win an Olympic award and they're being asked, how did you do it? And they say, I was focusing on the here and now, not focusing on the others, on the stress. And if it was too difficult, I just did the work which I've learned. For leadership development, I think leaders and business people are very bizarre. Musicians and artists, they practice first and then they want to reach performance. Sports people exercise and then they want to reach performance. But business people, very often they think, I'm going to learn something and then I'm going to perform, but they don't want to practice this. And actual leadership development means that when there's stress on you, like now in the economy, and for students in particular, there's a time also you have to practice this, not just know. And they want to practice this in the real world. I mean, business people try to do that as well, and they never take time for exercising themselves. But people in other spheres around the flow theory, they practice first and then they have the performance. So this is, I think, a good summary of what you also brought in. Thank you.
No, thanks to you. Fantastic. Any final questions before we close?
I would like to thank you, Alina, that you were here, from making this very international, also from Central Asia, from Nur-Sultan. Thank you very much for being here from all different countries. Based on your names and the icons, I can say that we were in a very good environment. Thank you very much. I hope this work was meaningful for you as well. Goodbye.
Yes, absolutely. It was great to have Alina here. Alina Askarova, she's the campus director in our Kazakhstan Geneva Business School. So it also has been an honor and a pleasure to have Alina participating here today.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that Zoltán is teaching organizational behavior class at the Geneva Business School, Kazakhstan, and our students were lucky to play Flickbee for now almost 3 years.
Fantastic. Great.
Okay.
Well, I see a lot of thanks. Very, very happy audience with this session, which was great. We're really satisfied, very glad to have the opportunity to hear you out. Dr. Zoltán Buzády, thank you very much. Oh. Great. Well, we're going to give a few more minutes in case you need to fill out the form, which please don't forget about it. We'll only take 3 minutes. So we're going to hang out here a couple more minutes to give you more time, okay? Because after that, the form will be closed. Again, thank you very much.